I'm Michelle Graves, your host on The Power of Money, and I'm honored to have you as a part of my world in this coming segment. With The Power of Money, as you know, we are interested in three things. First, that you get the necessary education so that you and your family will have the information to do well in these difficult times. The second thing I'm interested in is for you to be empowered to prosper. I want only the best for you, but you can't get that if you don't have the education and then the drive to make it happen. And the final thing, and perhaps the most important thing, is that you be energized. Because life is more than a journey. Life is about living. And so I want you to learn these things and to be empowered and encouraged and energized. I'm Michelle Graves. Now here we go.
And welcome to today's segment of The Power of Money. I'm your host, Michelle Graves, and I am just beyond honored and delighted to have you as a part of my world. The topic we're dealing with today is dyslexia. Let me tell you something about this particular learning disability. It's pervasive. Let me tell you some of the names of people that have it. And I'm going to read them off because the list is exhaustive. Thomas Edison had dyslexia. Albert Einstein had dyslexia. Danny Glover has dyslexia. Whoopi Goldberg has dyslexia. Wow. Bruce Jenner has dyslexia. Magic Johnson has dyslexia. Greg Louganis, U.S. Olympic gold medalist, has dyslexia. George Patton, military, has dyslexia. He's deceased now. Harry Belafonte, dyslexia. My God. Alexander Graham Bell, dyslexia. George Burns, dyslexia. Cher, dyslexia. Agatha Christie, dyslexia. Tom Cruise, dyslexia. Leonardo da Vinci, dyslexia. Walt Disney, dyslexia. Charlie Schwab, dyslexia. The list goes on and on. And Ray Charles, dyslexia. W.C. Fields, dyslexia. Michael Fox, dyslexia. Stevie Wonder, dyslexia. What is dyslexia? And how have we lived our lives completely unaware of this horrible, horrible learning disability? I have as my guests today two people. Dennis L. Harris, who is from Dayton, Ohio, graduated in 1961. And upon graduating, people did not know that Mr. Harris could not read or write because of dyslexia. His dreams of becoming a police officer and attorney were out of the question. People always assumed the worst for Mr. Dennis Harris, that he was just a lazy and stupid person. But how very wrong they were. Little did they know that he was battling a demon they could not see. His accomplishments and his success is amazing and astounding, and is a simple tribute to the grace and the mercy of God himself. This man retired from General Motors after 40 years of service. He is a national motivational speaker. He is one of only 19 speakers in the U.S. to receive the GSI Speakers Award. His acclamations and his success is simply astounding. So rather than me taking up an entire time talking about what he has done, we're going to get into today what he is doing. As a dyslexia, there's no cure for this condition. It will follow him to his grave. The other guest that I'm honored to have today is not in the studio, but is coming in via Skype. And her name is Maya Richardson. She lives in Brooklyn, New York. And she is my firstborn child. And she has dyslexia. Now, before you say, what? I am here to tell you, I knew nothing about dyslexia when she was growing up. And needless to say, her childhood was hellish. Because when you cannot read and write and process information the way everybody else does, it creates its own problems. So the reason I'm doing this is because of my commitment to transparency. I had a dyslexic child. I have a dyslexic adult daughter who is mastered her limitations and is in the entertainment business, and she's ex-military, and I'm so proud of her, particularly given what she had, and I, as her mother, did not even know this. Who knew? When you read all these people that have it present tense, how do they get help? So I invited her. And this is a very touchy thing because she does not have to do this, but I felt that it was important for who knows who this show will touch? Who knows who will be watching this show? Who has this condition and has been too ashamed to talk about it and to deal with it. But today we're going to deal with it because it's that important. How are you, Dennis?
I'm doing fine. Thank you, Michelle, for inviting me.
Thank you. How are you, Maya?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. I'm glad to have both of you here, and again, I appreciate it. Let's begin with you, Mr. Harris, and your story as a dyslexic. How does this happen?
Well, basically, dyslexia is something I was born with. There's a malfunction from my brain to this different systems, so I really don't try to get into the technical and what causes. I basically try to explain to society what we deal with on an everyday basis.
This is every day.
This is every day, just like you asked me to read a poem that I wrote.
And you said you could not.
I couldn't do that, not publicly.
Oh.
I can read it to myself, even though I wrote it, but I can't not read it out loud. And this is a lot of shame dealing with being dyslexic. But I didn't, like I said, I didn't find out until I was 40 what my problem was.
40 years old.
And I tried to suppress the feelings of being stupid and being dumb. I got into drugs, I got into alcohol. I had 2 bouts with suicide, trying to suppress that feeling of society tell you if you can't read and write, there's no place in society for you. You mentioned your daughter was in the military.
Yes, she was.
I was
Air Force.
always told when I was growing up, you can go to the Army and they'll teach you how to read. So that was my outlet. So when I graduated from high school, I went down to take the test for the recruiting office, and I failed the test.
You failed the test.
And I told the guy, I said, well, I can't read. So he told me, well, take this book home and study it. I said, I just told you I can't read.
I cannot read.
He said, well, there's no place in the military for you. And so that was my last hope of learning how to read. So, but during the Vietnam War, I got drafted.
Oh, my goodness.
So I told him, I said, why are you drafting me now? I took the test a couple years ago, and you said there was no place for me. So he said, just do that. And I did that. He said, well, you'll be okay.
You're going to?
Yeah, as long as I can pull the trigger, I'll be okay. So that kind of let me know the government really didn't care nothing about me
Me.
as an individual. And there's a whole lot of things that we have to endure and overcome in order to survive. Just like going to a restroom. You know, if you go into there's a sign on the door, now which is it?
Right.
Or going out to dinner, ordering food on a reading a menu. If there's no pictures on the menu, like, okay, what do I do? How do I order? You know, but my basically, I recognized when I was in the first grade something wasn't quite right. Because
In the first
in the first grade, we had to read this story about this kid's father was a pilot, and he would fly over the house and dip the wings and waving to his son. And I went home, and my mother helped me with it, you know, and I went back to school the next day. I was so excited to read this story. But then I stood up and I told the story, but something said, you really didn't read it, you memorized it.
You memorized the story.
And then from then on, everything started. I couldn't do the ABCs. I couldn't keep up with the other kids, and I was just told, okay, sit over in the corner, behave, don't cause no problems. And that's the way my 13 years in school was. Just
No one ever suggested to you that something may be off?
No.
Let me ask a question. Maya, are you there?
Yes.
Did you have a similar experience? And I know you went to Cincinnati, you went to the School for Creative and Performing Arts, which is a top-rated school for incredibly gifted and creative children. How were you able to function?
Well, I knew that I had an issue prior to performing arts. I knew at an early age when I was, I don't know, maybe in first grade, when I had to go to summer school all the time because I wasn't mastering. You remember, I was held back.
I remember. I remember.
First grade, I was held back, but it wasn't for lack of not understand or a lack of trying to read. You have to understand that dyslexia not only is a literary, it's a mental issue that your body, your brain cannot function or memorize at the speed of a normal human being or a normal function. You have to understand also that the way the brain is wired, each one is individually different, but things like mathematics or letters, it sort of gets jumbled up in your head and you can't remember where the words or the verbiage goes. So I remember that they used to take the back of a chalkboard, which was rough, and take my fingertips and rub over them like the spelling of an A or B or something like that. So it's really a lack of understanding from the educational issue, because there's plenty of kids that are failing school, failing subjects, math and everything like that, because they're unable to process information the same way as a regular child. Not to say that they're stupid or anything, it's just the way that they process things, especially in math or any kind of geometrical setting. It's very hard to memorize and everything, certain things. And I started early just going down and trying to formulate. I was so ashamed that I would go down in the basement and try to read books with big letters and everything like that, big words, or find pictures that I can identify with and put these words next to the pictures. And I would sit there for hours and hours putting these words with the pictures until my brain sort of clicked and figuring out what certain things, like even the word summer, S-U-M-M-E-R. I had, for 4 years, I had a problem spelling summer. You know, I couldn't get that that word or pronunciations of words. Those things are very important when you're trying to speak to people or memorize certain things or go to the front of the classroom and speak and the Declaration of Independence or things like that, and you just can't do it because your brain will not allow it to happen.
Well, I want to shift and stay put because this is so important. While Maya was sharing with us, Mr. Harris gave me a piece of paper which shows how a dyslexic person may see things. And I'm going to tell you, viewers, you can't see what I'm looking at. But I'm going to tell you right now, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's all over the place. I can't read this, and I'm fine in terms of my abilities, but this is what you all live with?
Well, everybody's different.
Everybody's different.
For me,
it's not the same for everybody. Everybody's brain functions in a different way. But like I said, it's very difficult. And I sort of blame the fact because this is stuff that teachers are aware of, but I think that they have such a number that they have to work in class that they don't focus on really one person. They have to focus on the whole of the class. So if one falls behind, that's one out of 10, 15, 20 people in the classroom. Well, that one's going to be, I was told that I was never going to amount to anything.
Oh, Jesus.
From my counselor. Her name was Miss Lauren Grayman. And she told me the only thing that I possibly could do was possibly go into the Army. But she didn't see me working anywhere because I couldn't pass any tests. I couldn't pass just a life basic analogy of money and finances and everything. And they didn't know where they were going to put me.
Well, let me shift back to Mr. Harris.
Like I was getting ready to say,
yes.
Basically everybody's not the same as when it comes to dyslexia.
Okay.
For me specifically, words seem to be like ants on a paper.
Words look like ants.
And like when you would, like we passed the book, like you would get the book and they would say, "Oh, that's my shell, we go stand still." And then when you get the book to me, then it's, "Oh, that's Dennis, let's go play." So it would just be scrambled,
Oh my goodness.
The humiliation of not being able to, at 8th grade, I didn't know my ABCs. And this one teacher tried to discover that I didn't know my ABCs, so she brought me up in front of the class.
She put you in front of the class in the 8th grade.
And to help me with my ABCs.
Oh, to help you with your ABCs.
And that was not going to work because everybody was already laughing.
I mean, the 8th grade is a little bit too late.
And so I have a personality that I call my protection. And he was pretty nasty guy.
Okay.
And he cussed her out, and she left me alone.
Okay, the teacher.
Yeah. But I really, really wanted to learn them, but I wanted to do it in the afternoon after school or something.
Right, in a private setting, in a respectful way.
I didn't know how to explain to her. But I didn't know anything about dyslexia. I just thought everybody, like your daughter just said, that I was always told. I was always told that I would never amount to nothing and I would never be anything.
Well, you see, I'm listening to her.
And, I would end
this
up on
is
welfare
very painful.
or in jail.
Yeah.
And that was coming from my father.
Your father said this?
Yes.
Did he identify or notice anything odd?
He didn't. No, he didn't. Neither one of my parents knew what was going on with me.
Okay, because I must be totally honest with you. I did not know anything about this condition, and yet I had to live through it and could not. My daughter is an extremely creative child. She was writing poetry at 2 and 3. I mean,
well, most dyslexic are very creative.
They are.
Just like,
my
you asked me a couple of weeks ago, how do I put on my fashion shows?
Yes.
This is something. These are two examples of the last two shows that I've done.
An evening, look at that. Wow.
This is the show we did last year.
Okay, called
this is the show
An
that-
Evening of Elegance. I don't know if the cameras can zoom in on this or close or not with him. But this is the show where it looks like you did everything. Oh, there you are. Oh my goodness, look at you. My goodness gracious. At the age of 40, you right there open about your journey. At the age of 40, Dennis was diagnosed with dyslexia and has spent the past 32 years educating society on this disability. My goodness gracious. This is nice.
And this
I'm
is
looking.
a show we did 3 weeks ago.
So you did Gifts from Africa, a fashion show tribute to Black History Month. So you are the man behind the Mystic Gentleman too. Oh my goodness, look at all these great men. This is wonderful. Well, I must tell you, I look at her life and I am amazed because she was in China with a girl group that she had formed and lived. I mean, to know what you all are living with actively now has caused me, I'm just in a Selah, as we say in the Bible world. I'm in a place right now. I can't really articulate.
Well, see, that's been my goal since I found out that I was dyslexic, is to enlighten society to what we deal with
on
an everyday basis. The way I found out I was dyslexic, I was doing drugs really hard. I was 35, 30 somewhere in my 30s. And I was suicidal.
Okay.
And I was going through a divorce with my first marriage. And see, that was another thing too. I married a woman. I wanted once I got my good job. Once I got the job at GM, the guys started getting married and having families. So I'm just trying to fit in.
Right.
I just want to be a part. I figure if I got a Toro or a lawnmower, that's what the guys are doing. So that's gonna make me fit in.
Yeah.
I bought me a Toro or a lawnmower, and then the guys were getting married. I said, well, I want to get married too, so I can fit in.
Right.
And I won't look different. So I said, well, if you get married and have children, they might be like you.
Oh my goodness.
And I said, I won't be able to deal with that. So with my smart brain said, okay, let's marry a woman with some children.
Okay, that already has children.
Already got children, and make sure they can read and write, and you won't be no problem. So I married a woman that had 5 kids.
You married a woman with 5 children.
And so that was just because, not because I was crazy in love with her or anything like that. I was just trying to fit in.
To fit in.
Just trying
you
to be a part of society,
life.
a normal life, And, those kind of things that most people don't have to deal with.
I didn't even.
I didn't have,
I
didn't, and then when my daughter, I wasn't able to enjoy her birth, my daughter.
Okay.
I wasn't able to enjoy her birth until she was like 3 years old.
Because you wanted to make sure she didn't have that condition.
I didn't know about dyslexia then either.
Okay.
I just didn't want her to be dumb like me.
Okay.
And we was in the grocery store one day, and she said, "Daddy, what's that word?" I said, "I don't know. Huh, shut up." And she started reading it. I'm like, "You can read?"
Oh, you can read?
She said, "Yeah." She said, "My sister taught me." I'm like, then it was kind of like,
oh wait.
Now I can enjoy her. Now I don't have to worry about whether she's going to be able to read and write or not. So
that's
something. Just some of the things that we deal with,
Well, Amaya, can I ask a question on this same subject? Are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I know you said in your situation, because you have a brother and 2 sisters by your dad's another relationship. And your brother you identified with your brother as having the same condition, correct?
Not only my brother, but my father had dyslexia. I have dyslexia, and my brother has dyslexia.
Now, do you know if the baby that he just had, is it a possibility that gene is there?
Yeah, well, it's passed on. I believe it's hereditary. I believe that somewhere in the gene pool something has happened, because it deals with cellular and mental deformities. So when you come across this kind of disease, it's very hard because people hide it so well. My father never knew how to read and write. He knew how to write his name.
I didn't even know that. When you told me that, I was astonished. I was married to this man and never knew that he could not do this.
You can hide dyslexia very well, and he bought his way into his job. He worked for Metro, and he paid somebody to get him, as long as he was able to mock and memorize the training, he could sustain his job. And he never wanted to go up higher because that meant he would have to take tests that were related to him, going and supervising, but you had to have some sort of education. And when he went to Vietnam, they just, from what he told me in high school and elementary school, they just kept passing him through, even though he didn't know how to read or write. So he had issues. Like for me, I just did not want anybody to think I was stupid. It was just humiliating for me, especially coming from somebody like, you have to have an A average, and I was always getting C's and D's and everything. And
I'm thinking about you having an alpha mother. I mean, the pressure of your mother.
It was hard.
Oh, God.
I would teach my brother and sister my tricks of how to read and write so that they would get ahead. And so I taught them early on so that they never had to deal with this disease. So they excelled, but I still was on a level of, when you see like that stuff right there, things fall out of your head. Yeah, that's part of dyslexia. Okay. Your memory and your thought pattern goes to the wayside.
Let me go back to Dennis. Thank you so much. Could you identify with what she was sharing?
My father had a reading problem.
Your father had a...
And he never was diagnosed as being dyslexic or anything. But dyslexia is not a disease.
Okay, it's not a disease.
It's a gift.
It's a gift.
Some of the psychologists, they don't call it disease anymore. They don't call it a disability. They say it's a gift.
Well, based on the people that...
The things that we can do.
Right.
The things that I do when I do speeches, and I'm very creative. So it's more of a gift that I have. And it's like, the way I found out I was dyslexic, like I said, I was suicidal, and I went to a place called Mountain West. Okay. It's a mental health place here in town. And I went there to get some nerve pills so me and this guy could get a high. Mm-hmm. I didn't go there looking for help. Okay. And I was going through a divorce too. And so I sat down with a counselor, and he said, well, what's your problem? I said, well, I'm going through a divorce. I'm afraid I'm going to hurt myself. And he said, and he was writing, and he says, is there other problems going on? And one of my other personalities said, we can't read. Woo. And I'm like, what'd you say that for? Huh. And I balled my fist up because I know he was going to start laughing. Uh-huh. And he said, well, I can help you with that. And I'm like, he said, you got to take an IQ test. And I said, I just told you I can't read. I can't read. How am I going to take an IQ test? He said, I can give it to you orally. And I'm like, well, I'm 35, 40. I don't remember exactly what the age was. I said, I should have learned something in the process of get to this point. I said, well, I'll take the test. I should be able to score at least 50, So I accepted it. I said, you can score 50, you'll be okay. So I went in and took the test.
Orally.
Right. Okay. And they called me a couple of days later and said they had made a mistake on the test. I said, well, what was the problem? And she said, well, she come up with too high of a number for somebody that can't read and write. I said, what number did you have? She said, she came up with 90. I'm like, well, they can't explain. I said, well, you gave me the test. So she said, well, we got to take it again. So I went back a couple of weeks later and I took it again. Okay, orally. Right, again. And I scored 115.
Oh my goodness.
And they couldn't explain how I could score so high and not be able to read and write. And so they sent me to an educational specialist and a psychologist. The educational specialist spent 6 months telling me how smart I was. I spent 6 months cussing her out.
Ah!
because it was costing me $75 an hour. But her husband was a therapist, so he asked me to come in to his group. I'm like, to share my story. And then he asked me to talk to this little girl. And he said, little girl from Kettering. I said, I don't know a little girl from Kettering. He said, yes, you do. Anyway, he said, I'll pay you. So I went in and sat down, and this other personality sat down with the mother and the daughter, other daughter, and was telling this mother all about her daughter. So the mother kind of got upset and asked the doctor, why you let him read my daughter's files?
Ooh wee.
And the doctor said, he can't read.
He can't read.
So she said, how is it that he knows so much about my daughter? And I'm wondering myself, how do I know this? I've never seen this child before. This little blue-eyed blonde hair. I've never seen this child before. And but God spoke to me and said, what she's going through, you've already been through.
My goodness.
That's how I knew so much about her, because I was just, it's like me, your daughter, I know your daughter. I never met her before. So after I was getting ready to go to Chicago for my first motivational speech for ACL, the Association for Children and Adults with Learning Disabilities. They're based in Cincinnati, matter of fact. And her mother called back to the office and tell Mr. Harris, she said thanks, that her daughter had made the honor roll.
Oh my goodness.
And then God spoke to me again and said, this is why. In order for you to be of service, in order for you to be of help,
yes,
this is why you went through
what you
went through. Now you can be of help.
Maya, are you there?
Yes.
My question to you is, have you been able to help your brother and with his condition, because he is younger than you? How?
I helped him at a younger age by when his mother was asking what he should do about his learning difficulties, and I suggested he be tested for dyslexia and placed in a school that would help him excel in his educational goals, and to be a productive person in society, in U.S. society. And he's to this day he thanks me, and he's gone to college. He didn't finish, but he has 3 jobs. He has his own house. He has a child now, so he's done pretty well. And he didn't have to go through the devastating, debilitating embarrassment that I had to go through when I had to study and work on things. But thank God I had really good mentors and teachers and stuff like that, and really good friends that helped me to push past my disability. Even though they didn't know what was wrong with me, I always asked for help. I always wanted to excel. And I did graduate from high school. A lot of people that would not have, especially in performing arts, since it was such a that school is hard. Performing arts, Walnut Hills, those are the top schools in Cincinnati, Ohio, and you have to be able to compete. If I had gone to a lesser curriculum school, then I think I've done much better. But I'm glad that I went to those schools and everything, because I was able to embellish on my craft, my art and everything, which that's what I'm doing right now in the industry.
And rubbing on your dog.
Oh, you see that?
I do see you and your dog.
Oh.
Yeah, you love your
Sorry.
dog.
He was being needy, and he
was
wouldn't
being needy. That's okay. Okay, we'll pick him up. So she was able to carve out with her brother a different story by coaching him and encouraging him. And I must tell you, this entire conversation has been difficult for me, It's been difficult because
as a mother.
As a mother, you don't understand, and it's because you don't know.
Exactly. My parents, I don't know. Daddy was a. If you want to eat, you got to work. And my mother, like I asked her years and years later, she was helping my nephew with some buying stuff for him to learn how to read. I said, Mama, why didn't you help me? She said, I didn't know.
I'm just telling you.
You know, so, and like your daughter said, no one, like I was at General Motors like at least 20 years, 25 years before I had an article in the paper before I came out with this. And I remember I was on the radio years ago, and I did a talk, something similar to this, and people were talking about, man, how much they pay you to tell that lie?
What? How much did they pay you?
How much they tell you to tell that lie? I'm like, what lie? He said, about you can't read. I said, I can't. But man, we do this, we do that. Society can think, if you can't read and you can't write, you can't cross the street by yourself. We do everything that in a normal, well, we're normal, just as normal as anybody else. So, you know, to me, it was like life is a game. I make a game out of life. You know, I create situations. I put myself in a situation in my head where in case I run across that situation, I already got it ready to get out of it.
Okay.
Like, say for instance, if you are one of my friends and he had me a piece of paper, say, hey man, what do you think about that? And I know what him and I talk about. That's Butch. Me and Butch talk about sports all the time.
So that's what you're going to talk about.
So I know something about sports, so I can elaborate on that. And if it's something that another guy talking about, or something else, something different, then I'll say, oh yeah, man. Then I very quickly change the subject onto something I can relate to.
That you can relate to.
So get him off of what he was thinking about, and that's the game that's the creativity that we have to be able to manipulate a conversation or a person into talking about something where I'm comfortable at. I'm not going to talk on anything that I'm not comfortable with. I mean, I don't know nothing about computers, so that wouldn't make no sense for me to sit down and talk to Ben. I sit down and listen to him, but I don't have any input when it comes to that. But I can very quickly change the subject into something that I'm comfortable with.
Well, this is one of the things I'd like to get your thoughts on, and yours as well, Maya, if you're listening in. You said you were able, if a person talked to you, then you could answer the questions. So there has to be, maybe there is a disconnect in terms of word forms, maybe? And is this only relative to English-speaking people, or is dyslexia global?
It's worldwide.
It's worldwide.
Like,
oh, it is. Okay.
It's like Leonardo da Vinci and.
Right, I'm looking at Leonardo. I'm like, gee, many Christmas, these people.
So it's not just an American situation. It's well, like she said, it's worldwide. But like I think Princess Di, I think Prince Harry, I think he's dyslexic.
Oh, the red-headed one that's getting ready to get married.
I know one of them is.
Okay. Do you know anything about that, Maya? That's your industry, that stardom stuff. Is Prince Harry dyslexic?
I never heard that, but if he had, I mean, I'm not surprised. It's just about having your thoughts and your being jumbled. Like it could happen, it can formulate in words, it can formulate in numbers, it can formulate in just. If I read something like he's saying that, you know, when he writes something and everything, it's jumbled. But for me to read, the way I read, I have to read with the page straight down. Like I can't read word by word. I have to formulate sort of like a scan for me to read a book or a verse or something like that. Because if I did, it would be transposed. If I write something, sometimes the letters will be turned around. A B will look like a D, or E will be upside down.
Yeah.
And you have to check yourself in your writing so that other people can understand. Because really, you can understand what you wrote.
This is my writing.
Other people can't understand what you wrote, and you have to. Your job is to be able to transpose your words in your specific language, your brain, so that other people can understand what you're saying.
And I'll tell you the story when she gets through about how I do
This is interesting. I'm looking here with Mr. Harris. He's showing me his notebook of all of his writings, and to look at it, it looks like you doing it. I mean, it's just a businessman's. You got your expense point, your thoughts, all of this. I mean, this is perfect English.
Let me tell you how I do this.
I want to hear how you do this.
I got involved. We have a program here in Dayton called Reclaiming Futures.
Reclaiming Futures.
It's a juvenile program that's ran by one of the judges. Mm-hmm. And normally I go home. I have my new wife. We've been together 20 years now. Mm-hmm. I used to go home. I got an idea to write this down for me, and that's what she's always done. And she's very, very unique. She's a good writer. She dots all her I's and cross all her T's.
Very analytical.
Ooh, very smart girl. Now, my daughter got me involved in this Reclaiming Future program, and I was a mentor to a kid that's on drugs. But at the end of each month, you have to write out a program of what you did with that child for that month. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to have to bother her about writing out my story.
Okay, you don't want to bother your wife about that.
I didn't want to bother her. I wanted to do it myself. For some reason or another, I wanted to do it myself because when she writes for me, it's perfect. You know, I do a little jobble stuff, you know, it might not be quite perfect. It might be, the word might not be just right, but that's me. So I said, and I just asked the Lord, I said, Lord, I want to be able to write this myself. And he said, use your cell phone. Use your cell phone? And I had a little phone like that I leave myself messages. Okay. And so I tried it, and I'm like, oh, wow. And then I went out and bought me a bigger phone. It's in the other office. Okay. And so this is how I write now. All I got to do is sit down and dictate to my phone what I want to say, take a note, and now I'm able to sit down and do all my writing. Did you hear that, Maya? How he does that? He uses a cell phone to scribe. Yeah. 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 She knows about that. I mean, you already know I have problems with,
I'm good at writing my lyrics and everything. And, you know, I'm with CSAC, the oldest agency for production and everything like that. So I have to write things perfect. So I use a computer and everything to go over all of my grammar, so that it's corrected and everything. And even when I was in China, you know, I used my cell phone to speak, because I didn't speak Mandarin. So I just turned it over and utilized that. And that's how I got around for 2 years, learning how to speak another language, was using the smartphones.
Wow. So that was something that you bumped into, or was that something you knew you better consider because of your situation?
Well, I knew I needed things to help better my situation. Every day, that's what you think about, is how can I get better? How can I communicate better with people so that they can understand me? You know, that's been always been my goal. I was able to speak correctly, but would I be able to write correctly? Would I be able to transpose it correctly? That's the main thing. And it's hard for me because most of my business is writing everything. With contracts and everything like that, I have to be on point with that, because one wrong thing that you put in there could, you know, make that make that contract void or null and void. So you have to use all different types of techniques to master your dyslexic issues.
Ooh, Mr. Harris.
I mean,
Ah.
this, like I said, this is why I try to enlighten society. Most of my speeches are based on getting society to understand what we deal with on an everyday basis.
Every day.
This is like one of the things I hate most is going to a new doctor.
Going to a new, now why is that
Because
so?
you have to fill out papers.
Oh my goodness, you do have to fill out
Every time you go
papers.
to a doctor, you have to fill out, and normally I haven't sent the papers to the house. My wife will fill them out
Okay.
for me, and I'll take them in, and I already got them made, so I ain't got to worry about anything.
Right.
This one particular time, they sent the wrong papers. She filled them out, but when I got there and gave them to them, I went and sat down and turned on my phone, and she said, "Well, Mr. Harris, you need to fill out these papers." And next thing I know, I'm hyperventilating.
I was going to say that's called a.
Yep, that was just, I
wee.
couldn't. So now when I go to the doctor's office and they give me some medicine, I'm not doing it. I'm dyslexic. I'm not doing that.
Okay, so they know.
Well, not the new ones, but the old ones. If you know, you had to fill out new papers periodically. And she called me last week. I went to a doctor, I think, and she said, "Well, Miss Harris, I said, I told you, I'm dyslexic. I'm not filling out more papers." I said, "I'll bring them back. I'll send them to you, but I'm not doing it today." Because
You also have to be aware. I'm sorry for cutting you off, but dyslexia causes health problems as well, because people who stress a lot about this disease, it causes migraines, it causes heart issues, because you're trying so hard to conform into society with your disease that and it's hard to explain to people the issues that you have. So these things, like I always suffered from migraines.
Right.
And that was brought on because I'm thinking, I'm in a constant loop of thought, trying to figure out how to communicate with people. Even now, how I formulate my words, I'm thinking about what I'm about to say right now so that I can say them that you understand.
Do you?
I have never had any health problem from dyslexia. I mean, depression, yes. I mean, you're close to suicide, so that's deep depression.
That's deep depression.
But I used to.
Oh, sorry.
I used to hear these voices, and I had an aunt that wasn't wrapped real tight.
I know that, wasn't wrapped tight.
And she talked to herself all the time.
Okay.
So I thought, when I heard these voices in my head, I thought that was happening to me. But then, now that I'm older and I understand these voices, this is these voices I'm hearing. This is all this and all this that's the voices I'm hearing, because now I'm able to decipher what they are and what they're talking about.
Okay.
But before it would just kind of like mumble. I'm like, what is this?
That would be going on inside of your brain.
Yeah, but now that's my
conversation.
creative side, because I'm always trying to create something. I'm always trying to do something. And one of my biggest goals is to, I don't know if I'll ever be able to do it, but I am so upset with the way our young people look.
It's rough out here.
With the way they dress.
Yeah.
So my goal is to I try to get them to understand where we come from.
Yes.
And who we are.
Who we really are.
We are descendants of kings and queens.
Absolutely.
So if we are descendants of kings and queens, we need to carry ourselves like that. Young men need to
Wakanda forever.
Forever,
Wakanda forever.
We need to present that to the we need to present that to the world.
Right.
This is who we are. I mean, baggy pants,
yeah,
crazy haircuts. That's not who we are.
And deeper than that, that's not what the world is looking for today. You will not. I mean, unless you are in a very unusual industry, that presentment's not going to get you far.
And I tell young men that all the time. I work at St. Clair Community College. I'm a security officer, information officer, and okay, and I tell young men, what are you studying? Yeah, I'm studying law. I mean, criminal justice or something. I said, well, you're not going to walk in no courtroom
Oh, no.
and find no brother looking like you look.
Well, in fact, I had on another show, I had a retired Judge Cheryl Grant, who sat on the bench for over 20 years in Hamilton County, which is nobody's picnic on a good day. And she talked about how they came in, and she point blank wouldn't allow them in the court.
Oh, well, yeah.
She just said, you must be confused. I'm the judge, and this is my court, and you have a nice day on the other side. And said some of the lawyers were like, well, you can't tell people that. And she said, this is the world that I live in. Yes, I can. So I commend you for that. We are just about wrapping up on this topic today on dyslexia, where I've been able to interview Dennis Harris, who has, how old are you now?
75.
Okay, 75, looks good, looks good. And my beloved daughter, who lives in New York City, and again, I'm the dumb, uninformed mother who back then, I didn't know anything about this, and she has been able to overcome significant challenges. And I cannot say anything other than to say I'm greatly impressed for what she is doing and what she continues to do. And all I can say is that God has a purpose and a plan for everybody. And I'm not saying that lightly. I'm saying that your sorrows will be a testimony to help somebody else to get through. And I believe that. I believe that you're not abandoned. And I look at what you've accomplished. Impressive. And look at her and what she's accomplished. Impressive. And all I can say to those of you that are viewing today, if you think this sounds like you, get some help. Get some help. Just say, let me get tested, let me find out, because your life can be so much richer with an understanding. And so on today's segment of The Power of Money, subject, dyslexia, 2 overcomers. I want to thank all of you for viewing the show. And again, as I always close out, God bless you and may His peace abide with you. Until next time, I'm Michelle Graves, and you have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.